So firstly, I would like to thank the ET group and distinguished guests and from Credai team, Jaideep Garu, for attending this event, and ET group for giving me the opportunity to talk on my favorite topic. And I think the city building should become a mainstream topic for the next 20 years is what I believe. So I think it's cities, the future of Indian economy, right? So that's the key thing. So let me get a little bit into what we mean by this and how important is city building and how it's going to contribute to the economy. Right, so let me share some statistics, right? I'll try to keep it in a mixture of statistics and stories so that the message can be delivered. So very interesting statistic which I came across. So close to just 15 districts out of 813 districts in our country, right? Our country is divided into 813 districts. Just 15 districts contribute to 50% of the entire GDP. And naturally, one can imagine all these 15 districts are, city-based, right? All of them are cities. So that's the importance of, city building and cities in the economy. So even from a real estate and per capita standpoint, right? So this is the opportunity what the real estate is going to see over the next 5 years. So if you look at the dawn of the decade, right, roughly around 2020, we were $200 billion in terms of our market size pan-India. And currently we are $478 billion, the market size. But you see in the next 5 years, we are going to be $1 trillion market. Let me share an interesting thing. Currently we are 8.5% of the GDP contribution comes from the real estate sector, right? Whereas by 2030, this is going to increase to 15% of the entire Indian GDP is going to be from the real estate sector. So that means the industry is almost going to more than double in the next few years. And we are going to be one of the major employment generator for the country, right? So let me digress. Let me build up the use case of why we should be building cities, right? So there are two key aspects. One major one being the entire thing around employment. All of us know how important employment is. And in fact, there's a lot of discourse both at the central government level and at state government levels around employment in manufacturing. And seldom the employment opportunities in real estate doesn't get discussed as much. So let me share some statistics. So we need to invest in the sector to, keep up the employment. And second, even to do value creation for our citizens. So I've just, pulled up this data to give you a perspective of what's happening in the labor markets, right? As you can see, right, agriculture is the biggest employer in the nation with close to around 230 million people working in the sector. And that is the per month average wages what people are earning. Right now, let's understand this with respect to the per capita income of the country, right? If you look, India currently, the per capita income is $3,000 per year, measured in terms of dollar terms. And agriculture sector sort of laggards that. They have like close to 1,20,000 rupees a year. So roughly around $10,000 to $12,000 is like 1 lakh rupees. So at an India scale, we are 2.5 lakh rupees or $3,000 is what the per capita income is. But one interesting thing to note is, if somebody is earning 3 lakh rupees of annual income, right, they will be placed in the top 10 percentile of the economy. So you can see how narrow the economy gets as we move to the top. Somebody earning 25,000 rupees a month will be in the top 10th percentile of the wage earning. So if you look at the average wages across sectors, right, agriculture is somewhere around 10,000 rupees, and manufacturing, which is talked about a lot, that also is somewhat slightly short of 20,000 rupees. But you look at construction sector, people are earning wages around 27,000 to 30,000 rupees. So it means if somebody is a laborer in the construction sector, they will be in the top 10 percentile of the economy. That's a key contributor of the sector. So we need to build jobs in this sector at scale, right? And how are we doing as a country? So agriculture currently is 230 million. It is going to further increase to around 300 odd million by the time 2030. Manufacturing and real estate jobs are pretty much same at around 70 million people are getting employment in this sector, manufacturing and in construction. By 2030, again, both of these sectors are going to employ 100 million each, right? So you're going to see an employment increase of 30 million each in these sectors. And again, this sector, at least construction, unlike to some extent manufacturing, is significantly AI-proof, right? Something which is on top of all of our mind is what is automation going to do with going to do with jobs? Well, in manufacturing, yes, we can expect some sort of threat, but construction, it's hardly anything. I would say negligible. So as our economy grows, we need to invest in sectors which is going to create jobs. And I would say AI-proof jobs. And that's where construction is going to stand out, both in terms of number of jobs, that is the volume of jobs, and in terms of even wage earning. So if we have to increase our country's GDP, currently from 4 trillion, and I think we have got a plan laid out that maybe in the next 7 years we'll be around 7 to 8 trillion, performance of this sector is going to be vital. If more and more people are moving into construction workforce, the per capita income, as you can see, simply goes 3x, right? That is your average per capita today is $3,000, will easily have at least two times impact. So it'll go to a $6,000 economy, thereby, keeping us firmly in the trajectory of a mid-income nation and then probably to a high-income nation. So this I thought was something interesting. So purely from an employment standpoint, this is the sector which is going to give more number of jobs per every rupee invested, both from the private sector or the government sector, not just in volume of jobs, but even in terms of pay as well. Right, so another roughly brief statistic which I wanted to share. So the level of employment also which gets generated, for every million square feet of construction which happens, 6,500 direct and indirect jobs is what gets created during the span of construction, right? So, and then 71 million people are currently employed. By 2030, it's going to increase 50% to 100 million people. Right, next, so what I think is going to be, and what do we think is going to be the future, right? So currently, if you look, most of the industry we all build in part of, as an add-on to the city infrastructure, right? So the city is built, and then we bring in housing and office space and various retail asset classes. I think the future is to really open up the sector, right? To push it from $1 trillion of GDP contributor to 1.5, 2 trillion. We need to start planning for sort of satellite or a micro-scale cities of 1,000 acres each. Of course, in India, it's getting land is quite a challenge, right? So building, there are two aspects what's happening, working with brownfield cities like currently what we have, but we need to start planning for pure play greenfield cities, because any sort of changes which needs to be done in brownfield cities from smart cities perspective and all is quite complex and takes years of time. And frankly, we don't have that time, right? Our demographic peak is going to be somewhere in 2045. So we need to become a developed economy before that. So one key thing we should be looking at is planning like a micro-scale cities or satellite townships, what we call, roughly 1,000 acres. So let me put some sort of unit economics around this type of city building, right? Let's say we build to an average density of 75 to 100 residents per acre, right? Of course, there'll be office spaces. 80% of real estate is housing, 20% is auxiliary infrastructure and supporting infrastructure like offices, retail, and malls and all of that. So let's say we are housing 100 people per every acre. We need then a 1,000-acre city will have close to 100,000 families, right? And most of the people now living in gated communities and these sort of city-based real estate infrastructure, the average per capita income is around $50,000. That is, people living in cities in gated communities is as rich as an European, right? So the average per capita income of Europe is $50,000, and the average per capita income of people living in these communities is also $50,000. So there is that spending power, and they belong to 0.8 percentile of the economy. Now what they need is better products to unlock the value, right? And so that with these products, their productivity will go up, thereby their contribution to the economy is also going to go up. Let me share some of the I would say, the key philosophy around which these cities should be planned. First and foremost, traffic is a big bummer, right? We don't want, we see the amount of sort of frustration and the net economic loss which cities and citizens go through because of traffic, right? And I've just pulled up a data. So this is annually the amount of hours people lose simply by commuting. So commute time is actually very productive time, right? So saving good part of this will actively contribute to the economy. So yeah, first aspect of city building should be probably no cars on the street. That's how I would look at it. But we need to look at some feasibility there. But yeah, fundamentally planning it around walkability. And the next, as Jaideep Garu also told, The government also is now here working on a unified building policy where these sort of things are being taken into account and again form the basis for the new, new way of building cities. So it's about, again, it needs to be walkable neighborhoods, and next, it needs to have a lot of mixed-use zoning. If you look at India particularly, we have a very linear zoning. A building can either be a homes, or it can be an office, it can be a retail. But if you look at most of the real estate world over, it's mixed-use zoning. So you have like your prime retail zones, which is like the ground and the first floors being retail and the above floors being office and above floors being home. This is going to be the future because it brings in a lot of convenience. And next, planning for walkability, right? One thing common across all our cities is that hardly we'll see footpath. If at all we see, it's encroached, or maybe it's 5 feet wide, maybe one person can walk. We need to at least take away one lane from the road, make it 20 feet wide, so that people can fundamentally walk. And walkability will open up the commerce at the entire street level, wherein you can bring in a lot of local businesses to operate from there, thereby even pushing your small and medium scale enterprises. So this is how you can stimulate, demand in the economy, right? And then very, very important thing is the entire thing got to do with environmental sustainability. All of these cities should be planned with net zero concept in mind. Already there is good amount of policy in place where you can generate power from any part of the country or any part of the area within the DISCOM, and you can sort of use the government infrastructure for wheeling, and the power can be transported or sort of settled for that community. Thereby, even the cost of electricity which citizens pay can also come down by at least 20%. And all of that can be green energy. So these three and another important thing is water infrastructure, right? Currently, our urban planning, the water runoff is high.
It's the last day of the month. You could be scrambling to hit quota, or not. Sell smarter and relax harder with Apollo.io, the only all-in-one sales platform with everything you need to find leads. Get in touch. Manage
1 year is more than sufficient for usage by people staying in that area for at least 200 families. That's the amount of rainfall we are getting even in these conditions. All we need to do is somehow store that water. If we can make like large natural, low-lying water bodies, naturally it can act like a storage pit. So yeah, I would say the city building should evolve fundamentally around these things: traffic, environmental sustainability from energy and water standpoint, and next mixed-use zoning, which will principally give a push for walkability and small and medium-scale businesses, because those are the things which are now sort of vanishing. We want to give space for them. So before I conclude, I would like to point out to this another interesting thing what's happening in Hyderabad. The entire CM's vision has been the fourth city, right, or what he's calling the AI city. This can be again a big game changer for Hyderabad. So in terms of, again, for city building, just like for manufacturing, you need a good amount of land and probably skilled laborers. For city building, fundamentally you need what? Your raw material is land. The more and more organized land supply comes in, the city building is going to increase. Increase in city building is going to create a lot more jobs, AI-proof jobs to be specific, and even high-income jobs compared to manufacturing and agriculture, right? So the fourth city is 30,000 acres. So that's an enormous opportunity, both from an industry standpoint and even from the citizen standpoint. It's totally greenfield infrastructure. So it will be again designed across state-of-the-art facilities, and I think that's where the Uniform Building Code also they are sort of bringing in to start planning the city on these sort of framework. So that's going to be a big sort of a game changer for Hyderabad. And again, the sort of planning 3 lakh plus jobs. But I think the real contribution is going to be from the city is the economic impact, right? Close to 1 lakh crores or $11.5 billion of per capita GDP is going to be generated from that city. It's per capita GDP at a city scale, right? So 1 lakh crores. So imagine just from a taxation standpoint, government is going to earn a revenue of just on payroll around 25,000 crores. And from businesses and service tax, it's going to be a lot more. So building cities makes government richer, it gives more opportunities, and creates a lot of jobs at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So I think that's it from my side. I wanted to make a sort of a use case or a pitch deck for city building. And so, yeah, so thank you.
So, yes, please.